Okay. Mishlei 1433, day two. I was thinking about our idea. I really like what we came up with yesterday. All right, so let's review. Believe Navon tanuach chochmah u'b'keref k'silim tivadea. In the heart of an understanding person, or in an understanding heart, chochmah will reside or rest. U'b'keref k'silim tivadea. But among, inside fools, it will be made known, I guess is probably a better translation, be made known. Okay, so our questions were, what is the subject of the pasuk? What are the definitions of Lev, Navon, Chochmah, and Ksil in this context? What Chochmah is the pasuk talking about? And is it referring to the same Chochmah in each half, meaning there is a Chochmah which will reside in the hearts of the Navon, but will be made known in the Kerev Ksilim? Or is each half talking about the Chochmah of that person, that the Chochmah of the Navon resides in his Lev, but the Chochmah of the Ksilim is made known? Four, why are we talking about Chochmah in relation to the Navon? Isn't the Navon defined by Bina or Tavuna? Five, what does it mean for Chochmah to be resting or residing in the heart of the Navon, as opposed to what? Is it as opposed to resting or residing elsewhere? Is it opposed to not resting or residing? Is it like restful versus restless? Is it, what's the opposite here? And how else could Chochmah be in the Lev Navon? And also resting sounds like a passive term, but shouldn't Chochmah be active? Six, in what way does Chochmah relate to the heart of someone who is not a Navon and not a Ksil? Seven, what is meant by Chochmah will be known, B'kerev Ksilim? How? Made known to whom? And do the Ksilim even have Chochmah? Eight, what does B'kerev mean? Is it amongst, within, or something else? Nine, what's the relationship between the two halves? How are they opposites? 10, why are both halves in the future tense? And 11, who's the audience? What is the practical decision-making idea? So we had three approaches, I think. So first was Isaac's approach. So basically the idea is that the Navon not only knows the Chochmah, but so Chochmah is received knowledge. Okay. The Navon has internalized that to the point where it lives in his heart, which means that it's going to affect his decisions, and the heart is the center of the person, and or it is real to him. I don't know how you want to say heart, but whatever the idea is, it's conveying the fact that like he's internalized it. The Ksil might have Chochmah, but it is just among the Ksilim. So they know about it, but they don't know it. They can maybe even talk about it or recite it, but it's external to them. It's not even affecting their actions. And then we said that the audience is the Chacham, who relates to Chochmah like the Ksil in that it's not internal. It still is received, and he's not really processing it on his own. But like the Navon, he is implementing it, but his ability to implement it is going to be narrower, and it's really going to be implemented. It's more like he's wielding it. It's not a part of him. So it's not in his lave. So that's who the pasuk is talking to. And I guess the practical outcome, I would say, like, what's the practical decision-making advice? Is I think this is an interesting metric for thinking about how you relate to Chochmah, in any given case. Like, am I relating to this as a Ksil, as a Chacham, or as a Navon? And if you're relating to it, in any way other than a Navon, you have to like chart a course for getting there, I was just this morning, I was ranting on my what I'm thinking about this morning post about Tehillim is a good example of that. It's like there's so many ideas in Tehillim that people give lip service to, but do they bother to learn Tehillim and work on it and cultivate a relationship to Hashem via that idea? Like, do they actually try to V'hashivosa el levavecha? No. So why not? Like, in other words, this is the you're in one of these three realms, and so like you're the guy who either, let's take Tillim and Tefillah, like you're either the guy who the idea is said next to him, he's not even like applying it. Then there's the guy who like has it and is trying to apply it, but not going beyond that. And then there's the person who it's a part of him. Okay, that was Isaac's idea. Anything you want to add to that, Isaac, or anyone else? I think it's pretty complete, but okay. So then there's my idea, which is that okay, I thought of a different way to say it. Okay, you can't opt out of Chochmah. Okay, you can opt out of a lot of things. For example, let's take davening. Okay, there are people who daven well or daven poorly, or you could just not daven. Yeah, it's usher, but like you're just opting out of the whole thing. Poker, right? There are people who are good at poker, bad at poker. But some people just don't play poker. Chochmah, you either play Chochmah or you're played by Chochmah. Either Chochmah relates to you, either you relate to Chochmah as a Gavra or it relates to you as a Chafta. Okay. You are either, it reminds me of, I've heard Mortimer Adler say this and Rebbe say this, which is that, everyone is a philosopher. Either you're a conscious, thoughtful, good philosopher or you're a thoughtless, bad, unthinking philosopher. Like you can't opt out. Philosophy, everyone has a certain way of relating to life and they make decisions based on values, and either you're examining those values and decisions or you're not. So you can't opt out of Chochmah. So either Chochmah is either you're striving to be someone who Chochmah is in your heart, or Chochmah is going to be demonstrated via you and your bad decisions. Yeah, what is it?
No, I was just raising my hand saying
yeah, I think we're all in between. And I think the takeaway from my idea is similar to the takeaway from Isaac's idea, which is, Chochmah covers a lot of areas of life, and most people are not either exclusively one or the other, so when it comes to, let's say, like in business, you might be, reading books and applying principles and examining yourself and stuff like that. But in other areas, you're not applying Chochmah, and Chochmah is just like being exhibited through your bad decisions.
Who said that quote? Mortimer Adler.
Mortimer Adler has a thing. Everybody is a philosopher, and then Rebbe on I think it's on How to Choose a Philosophy. Or something. I don't remember which shiur. It's one of the old shiur. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's the idea here. And again, I think what is it speaking to? It's speaking to someone. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, I didn't write that yesterday. Okay, so I actually want to write a few of these things. Right. So you can't opt out of Chochmah. Either you play it or it plays you. Either you relate to it as a Gavra or it relates to you as a Chefza. I came up with that on the way here. I'm pretty proud of that. Yeah. And the practical application is that we rationalize without realizing it, which is kind of a contradiction in terms, realizing it, not getting involved in Chochmah consciously because we fantasize that we can opt out. Okay, in other words, we just like don't apply Chochmah to certain parts of our lives, and deep down we believe that there aren't going to be any consequences. Okay. I forgot if I quoted this in shiur or if I quoted this in a discussion, but a few months ago, I don't even remember what prompted it, but Ariel Tucker commented to me on WhatsApp and said, which something must have happened with Trump. I don't remember what it was. And he was commenting about Trump supporters and saying, and specifically not the political part, but the dismissal of like Trump's personality and mitos. And he was saying like, it's as if people think that mitos aren't real. Like it's as if people think that, yeah, there's this chart of like good mitos and bad mitos, and like, yeah, you want to check off the good ones and you want to not have bad ones, but like if you don't, then it's its own thing. Like you can have someone like, it's like people say like you can have someone like Trump who has horrendous mitos, horrendous ego, horrendous desire for power, lying, all the bad mitos, and it's like in their mind, yeah, he has the bad mitos, but there's no way it's going to affect decision making, but you can't opt out of bad mitos. Like the bad mitos will manifest and they will affect your decisions, so that's I think that's the practical application here is how are you relating to Chochmah? Okay.
So the famous machlokes in the Gemara about Achashverosh.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay, so then we had Ezra's idea, which was supported by the Metzudas David. So Ezra was saying that this is talking about keeping your Chochmah internal versus externalizing it. The Chochmah of the Navon is kept within him because he values it, but the Ksilim only care about Chochmah in terms of showing it off, right? So then and we support it with Mishlei 18:2, which is I can't quote it by memory again. Now I know where it is though. Lo yachbot Ksil betvunak im b'hisgalos libo. Ksil only desires chachma insofar as he can express his essence, okay, or his mind. But then the Metzudas David. Let's read the Metzudas David again. Metzudas David. Oh, where are we? We're at 22. 23. Yeah. Metzudas David says Tim tenuach is timsa menucha. It will find rest. V'lo yodiena lemisha eno roila, and he won't teach it to someone who is not roy for it. Uvkerev Ksil, uvkerev me'at hachachma asher hi b'kerev haksilim tivadei alakol. The little bit of chachma that is in him, he will make it known to everyone. Ki machriza barabim, because he will declare it publicly. And then istira beligina kish karya, a coin in a pouch, makes noise. Yeah, I actually accidentally stumbled upon an example of this. I realized that I left my dice in here. Oh, I guess this is not full, but whatever. So if you imagine that this were full and you shook it, it wouldn't make any noise. But if it is got very little in it and you shake it, that's
Really
the kishkish
loud.
sound. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right. So in other words, the fuller, the more full you are of chachma, the less noise you'll make, because you won't be giving out the chachma indiscriminately. But the less chachma you have, then the more you're going to make it known. And our questions were, so what? And also, why is this a trait of Navon specifically? What were you going to say?
I was gonna make a nitpick on Yona.
Yeah.
Not that he's teaching it, but that he's like portraying it, like letting it be seen.
Okay, I hear that. Yeah, it is hard to. There's no good word in English for lehodia, right? Because the best you could say is to make known, right? But that can mean two things. It could either mean putting the knowledge out there, or it can mean causing someone to know it. So like that's what I'm not sure exactly what the emphasis is. I mean, I think I'm inclined to think that you're right, because I don't think the Ksil cares about like that the other person knows it. I think he just wants to make it known, Yeah.
I was gonna say about the dice.
Yeah.
I have the same container it's full of dice.
Yeah.
And it makes almost no sound.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. And I think that's must have been what's happened, because like this is the first time, I've carried this dice around a lot. And at one point it must have been full. And there are times when like I lose this, I've lost this, and then found it was in the bottom of the bag. And I just didn't know about it because it didn't make noise. But I when I was walking to yeshiva this morning, I was like, oh, it's there. Yeah. Right. So the question is, so what, and why is this a trait of a Navon? And what would the Chacham do? I still want to think about what the Chacham would do here, right? Because he's also presumably going to share his Chochmah, but maybe not make it known, but where is, like, how is he thinking about the making it known? And also, it's weird to me. This is not a kushya on the pasuk, but just a question. I read this pasuk. So according to this, the subject really is, on the surface, has to do with teaching. And I don't mean teaching like a vocation. I mean teaching like what you do with your chachma vis-a-vis other people, And so like, is that the subject of the puzzle, or is it something else? Yeah.
So I'm thinking of Chacham as on a different plane than another one of Ksil.
Okay.
And whereas another one is someone who like keeps it private, only reveals it to those who are right. And the Ksil just makes it known to everyone. A Chacham is just someone with Chacham.
Okay.
So Ksil could be a Chacham at the same time.
Right.
But he just doesn't act as a Navon.
Right. Okay, that would make sense given the profile of the Chacham. That like, someone whose primary orientation, again, these are just like archetypes, so this is not like a clean category, but the Chacham is the recipient and he's in receiving mode. He's trying to get Chochmah. So he's not really going to be out there sharing it, Whereas the Ksil is because that's the whole reason why he relates to Chochmah, is just so he can like show it off, you know.
You're saying upon receiving it was the Chacham reveal?
I do see, because that's the thing is I have met a lot of Chachamim, and I mean Chachamim in terms of Baal Shmua, and it seems like they do share their Chochmah, you know, but apparently they don't share it discriminately. They don't share it discretion, like only to people who are right for it. So, but they also aren't just trying to like share it with whoever, you know. So like I feel like I want to understand what is their relationship to Chochmah in these categories. Yeah.
It's interesting. It reminds me of this a while back from this Monday Night Mishlei pasuk, like you have to be careful of like what you share to people.
Right. I feel like we've had that on Monday night.
No, we definitely did.
Yeah.
I don't remember what puzzle, but like the idea is very similar to what Ezra just said.
Yeah.
But so the question is like, it's not new, you know, like
right.
So the question, you know, so which got me thinking about another thing that if you notice, like I've noticed this about like you know like the Chum here, you know, versus like your normal Talmud here. It's interesting.
Am I recording this or not?
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I think this is a general thing.
Well, I just want to know if you're going to say something bad about the yeshiva.
No,
okay, fine. Okay,
it's a good thing.
Okay, good.
No. I think it's a good thing.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
you're
No, go ahead. Go ahead. It's on you.
It's because like a lot of the come here, like they, you know what, how like when you overhear like an argument or something,
Yeah.
like you have like this impulse to just like insert your opinion.
Yeah, that's a good
like,
example of this.
But,
Yeah,
like, they don't do it. They're like, look, no, like, and they're gonna come. I'm sure they have an opinion.
Right.
You know, about like Trump versus Biden or whatever.
Yeah.
but they don't. They just they just keep it themselves. I wonder if that's like a midas chochmah.
Yeah, that does seem to be what this is talking about.
You know, versus like you're a guy who in yeshiva, they're arguing it out and like they see. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like they hear someone arguing, I don't know. They feel the need to like express their thoughts because they want to be heard.
Yeah, I was thinking about that recently in terms of like online like social media stuff, and I definitely, when I was in my late 20s, I guess, still had this like almost compulsive need to like, if someone says something stupid or false about Torah, online, I have to like jump in and correct it, and I don't have that now.
Yeah. So the question is like, this might be a fill. So the question is like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it for yourself? Just to get yourself known?
Yeah.
Just for the sake of people knowing you, which is not for Chochmah?
Right.
Or are you doing it for the purpose of like Chochmah so they can actually educate them?
Yeah. Right.
I wonder if there's like
that's definitely an important chiluk here. Yeah. I just I don't know if that's like a step to the main idea or if that's the main idea unrefined. Yeah, I think about it. Yeah.
I think the reason the Chacham isn't in this passage is because he doesn't specifically have either characteristic. Meaning you could have a Ksil specifically want to make known whatever bit of Chochmah they've got.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the Navon in a second, but the Chacham doesn't like the Chacham is someone who actually appreciates Chochmah for what Chochmah is, because that's why he pursues Chochmah.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the same ego relationship to it that Ksil does. So he could be doing the same thing, but he also might not. And Navon specifically is someone who is able to generate new Chochmah. Like it'll be like insight, but then for other people who are receiving it, it'll be Chochmah. So he is I think I guess I don't know exactly why, but I think he is experienced enough with how other people. I think he's experienced enough with how other people relate to Chochmah that he knows to be cautious about when to share.
I hear what you're saying, but again, I think the place where my question is coming from is reality. is the reality that I understand the Chacham doesn't have either of the qualities being mentioned in the other side, but he does at the end of the day either keep his Chochmah to himself or make it known. And I want to know by what principle does he do that?
Yeah, so I think what I'm saying is that he can be in either thing. It's not like it is just dependent on the person. Kind of like if let's say there's let's say the tzaddik in the Russia.
Yeah.
Most people aren't either a tzaddik or Russia.
Right.
They're in the middle, and depending on how much they have one quality or the other, they're gonna do that.
Yeah.
Thing. So I'd say the Chacham is in the middle in that he's, it's not like there's a definitionally like the Chacham is going to do one thing or the other because of him being a Chacham.
Yeah. Yeah, here we're saying. I just want to voice one question also again, which is I do want to re-examine as well the lashon menucha. And I think this is part of you were asking the question last time about the passive versus active, or someone like that it is strange to me to characterize it as it is like I don't even know the best English translation. It's like I'm trying to think of a word in English that means at rest, but has the connotation of silent. Because that's really what he's trying to say.
Dormant?
Yeah, see that dormant. Right, but that doesn't really bring to mind. Yeah, exactly. That doesn't bring to mind sound, yeah. What were you gonna say though? You had your hand up.
Just like part of what Isaac's saying, I think that the Chacham can fall into either when it comes to voicing it.
Yeah.
That like Mishlei will use Chochmah, and I don't know if this is true, but for receiving the knowledge.
Yeah.
Like for in Navon and Ksil, they use it for like both ways, and then also how they act upon it.
Yeah, I also don't know if Mishlei. I mean, like it's consistent with things I've seen in Mishlei, but yeah, I guess that's kind of what this is gonna be a data point in, yeah.
So to answer that,
Menucha question, yeah.
Question? Maybe it's not only how they're acting, but it's also how they feel about it. I think the Navon doesn't. Not only is he choosing not to share the Chochmah, it's not like he's like actively restraining himself.
Right. So yeah. So I just want to give empirical data about that. The way I've experienced this a lot is when I was in Shalhevet for 10 years teaching and like developing as a teacher, even until the end, like there was this feeling of like, I have to teach my students everything that I know. Okay. Like it was a thing, like over the course of the 4 years, as like, that's the ideal I'm striving for. I have to the Chochmah is in me trying to get out, to my students, not in the Ksil way, but like in the, obviously whatever's developmentally appropriate, etc. Now, and this is partially, I assume because of my changed relationship with Chochmah, but also partially because I only teach one class to each grade. And so I can't do that. There's not that same restlessness of the Chochmah, not restlessness is the wrong word. I was just trying to say the opposite of Tanuach, but there's that, like, I don't have that sense of like, I have to try to like convey this, and it's related to what Ariel was describing about the way you relate to like when you hear someone like arguing about something, that resonates with me.
I have another thought on that. Like, have you ever asked like what's that impulse like why? Because I have the same thing, like I have to like impart every single ounce of knowledge that I have with this person. Yeah. So like I wonder like why that is. So like and here's this wild theory. Okay. All right. Maybe you could say that like it's maybe it's because like it's kind of like the God complex. Like I want to like
most problems come down to that.
I want to make you in my image.
Yeah, right. I do think that that is I do think that is a lot of it. Yeah.
And instead of like them, being themselves.
Yeah. I do think that is a big part of it. Yeah. Okay. I think this has been a very good discussion about this idea. I think we got the practical idea. I think I still am not entirely happy with why it says Tanuach, and I still am not entirely happy with why it's a Navon, even though nothing that anyone has said I've disagreed with here. But it's just, but I don't want to force it. So let's.
I have an adjective.
Yeah.
tranquil.
Yeah, tranquil is good. Tranquil does have the connotation of quietude and
Yeah, it doesn't work in the flow of the sentence.
Right.
But
I'll just put it here for notes. Is tranquil. Oh, sorry, not
tranquilly.
I understand. Wisdom is tranquil in the heart of the Navon. Okay, yeah. All right, so let's look at either Rabbeinu Yonah or the Meiri. Rabbeinu Yonah says, "Believe Navon to know Chochmah, mipnei shehu osek b'Chochmah liyisron hechsher ma'alasa." That phrase comes from somewhere. I've seen that before. Yeah.
I don't know if you asked the question.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why the first half is singular and the second half is plural?
We did not ask that, and that's the type of question that doesn't bother me. And we've I think we did I think on Monday night one time we did a thing about like just looking through and seeing if there's any patterns in that. About is it like good guys singular, bad guys are plural. There might be some theory, but yeah, it's a good to ask the question though. All right, so because he's involved in Chochmah, liyisron hechsher ma'alasa. No clue how to translate that. Due to the advantage of the making worthy of its level. Yeah, I don't know. Umakir biakar tiferes gedulasa. Tiferes gedulaso. And he recognizes the preciousness of the splendor of its greatness. Vihitzfuna ito, and it is stored inside of him. Or squirreled away in him, and he applies his heart to it, like a treasure house of pearls or corals, as I am now convinced that pninim means corals. By the way, this is an example of we noticed before. I feel like I made this comment earlier that Rabbeinu Yonah sometimes waxes poetic. Definitely here. Velo yilamdena rak lahaguni. Oh, because this is going to elaborate. And he only teaches it to those who are worthy. Velo yidaber bilti daber bito. And he only says something that in its proper time. V'gam ki lo tivada leish ma'alaso b'chochmah. He also doesn't make known to someone his level in chochmah. He'll even lie to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who doesn't recognize his own student, and say, "Oh, I'm just a guy who's like a dog or a raven. Just feed me. I'm not a Talmud Chacham." That's a reference to the Pirkei Avos I've been giving. I just read that. Yismach v'yasi salaha kamotzi shal harav, and he will rejoice and be glad over it, like someone who finds huge treasure. Okay, all right. So right now, to me, this is in the same category as Mitzvah David, but it's expansive because it's saying that he really is like. It's coming from his appreciation of the Chochmah. This might be answering the question about why a Navon, right? That he really has an appreciation of Chochmah per se. And I'm going to go back and compare this to the example of the student that I gave yesterday who was writing about the idea of laziness from Sadigon. I think that there is a feeling that people have when they're first learning Mishlei, where it's like, ooh, individual idea. Okay, that's like the first level. Second level is, ooh, Mishlei has good ideas. But then there's this level of Chochmah is good, and like you really can't get that when you're just a Chacham, because the Chacham is relating to ideas individually, but the Navon appreciates Chochmah per se. That Chochmah, he has a relationship with Chochmah, that it's Yakar and Tiferes Gedula, all that good stuff.
How do you know, John?
If you want to know, then you're not on the level. If you're asking the question, yeah, it's
poetic resonates with you, then you're on the level.
yeah. Okay. Uvakerav Ksilim tivadea Haksilim lo yitzpenu Chochmah ha'olam. Yeah.
I was just gonna add the pasuk from the pasuk, the Mishnah. Sorry.
Yeah.
In Pirkei Avos, siag l'chachma shesiga.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so that is very interesting because I don't want to open that up, but that's like a good thing to start chiyun on, because that seems to be talking about, based on the way I've learned the siag mishnayos, you implement the siag, right? As opposed to this, which sounds like a natural organic outgrowth of your chochmah, So but that might be something that would give us an answer to my question of how does the chacham relate to this phenomenon. Yeah, that's good. All right. So Haksilim lo yitzpenu hachachma lolam. They don't store up the chachma for ever. Ki yadabru ba b'soch haksilim ubilti davarito. They speak about it amid fools and among the and not in its proper time. Ki ein chavta min hachachma rak lihis kabed. Their desire in chachma is only to honor themselves. To become honored. The ikar amalam ba laman yedun habrios ki lamdu chachma, and their essential involvement, toil in it, is so that the people know that they learn chachma. V'zeh al derech perush Rabbeinu shehiviu mashal inya hazeh ki ha'istra b'tzluchis mekashkeshes uvekis asher hu malkum haroila kola lo yeshama. Okay, that's a different understanding of the mashal than what I was saying. I was saying it's based on the quantity of stuff that's in it. And that was why I was trying to give the English idiom of a jar with only one marble rattles the loudest. This is different, which is a coin in a jar rattles, but in the pocket, which is the proper place for it, it's not heard. So that's talking about the receptacle is different.
Oh, I thought I was saying that like the place where that is right for it, meaning like the types fill that jar. So that jar.
Oh, that's interesting. That's interesting. I think Tzlokis is a jar though, right? And Kis is a pocket. So I am assuming. Yeah, I don't know. He said, let's look at 51. That's in probably Hu Chacham Lomi Mikol Adam. Kasav believe Navon to know Chachma Shuhu Kecheres Hadariyani Shenivla Hayayin Besocho. Okay, this is like a Darien earthenware jar. I assume this is a or Hadriani, a Hadrian, I don't know what this is, that absorbs wine in it. The Chochmah, I assume this is the Chochmah, does not have an effect on them as its way is to affect, meaning it doesn't have its intended effect. Therefore, they are not called Chachamim, only those who know Chochmah. Like a glass jar or glass kli that is I'm not following this. All right. Let's go on. Okay, so that was one parish. So this really was an expanded version of Metzudas David. And answering a bit more of our questions, especially the why the Navon, because only the Navon truly appreciates the Chochmah. And I think that's a different note here. Okay, then we talk in the Farish, Navon. So it's possible to explain that sometimes the Chochmah rests in the heart of the Navon. He does not make known his Chochmah, nor does he talk about it. And nevertheless, even so, it will be made known among the Ksilim. Af be'ein magid, even without someone who tells it. Af be'ein mashmiya, even without someone who makes it heard. Ki hanavon bein aksilim yodea or yivadea bihan hagosa v'yakiruhu b'tenuosav. Interesting. So the Navon among Ksilim will be made known through his conduct, and they will recognize him through his movements. Ki lo yisachik b'schok Ksilim. He doesn't joke around like Ksilim. V'lo yasiach b'sichasam hasenua l'shonam hara. He does not speak in their detestable conversations or their lashon hara. Ukamase Ksilim asher yeshiv b'socham lo yaseh. And like the actions of Ksilim that he sits among them, he will not do. I mean, he won't act like them. Umidosav v'hanhuosav nivdalas mehan hagosam. And his midos and his behavior is going to be differentiated from theirs. The az no da'as chachma so be also bein Ksilim. Then his chachma will be known when it's among the Ksilim. V'tavdilenu hachachma mimaseim v'lo yimashech acharem. And his chachma will differentiate him from their actions, and he will not be drawn after them. Kinyan hamor shenirgash tuv recho yoser b'machmatinovis. That's a very interesting mashal. Just like myrrh, that its fragrant aroma is sensed even greater in a place of filth. Interesting. Oh, okay, so that's that. What was it? Probably in the sense that you will, the contrast will make you more aware of it. You know, like for example, I mean, what I'm picturing here, Malcolm Matinofis, and you know, sometimes you walk into like a neutral place, like an office or something like that, and they have some sort of air freshener, and like it registers, but like it is just a feature of the room. But if you go into a horrible smelling public restroom and then like you get the thingy that goes and sprays the thing, then you're like, oh, like, okay, that is like contrast to that, like it jumps out more, you know? Right. So the question here is what would be the idea? So he's saying that what's not a chiddush to me is that you can discern a chacham from his actions. Okay, the thing that is a chiddush is that line, that it's talking about the effect on him, that he is different, and therefore he's not going to be drawn into them, which is contrary to the Rambam I always quote in Hilchos Deos, that you are drawn to the actions of the people around you. You know, I want to understand that tension. Yeah.
I think you could say that a chacham, I think you could say a chacham would possibly fall into this trap of like voicing his chacham around Ksil.
Interesting.
Whereas here specifies a Navon because a Navon wouldn't fall into that, even because
that's interesting. I would also say that if you just take Isaac's idea and insert it here, that I don't think the chacham is necessarily going to be, because he hasn't internalized his chacham, it's not going to be so automatic and all-encompassing where like all of his actions are going to be different, you know, like it's going to be like again, take a you know, let's say you have a yeshiva guy, right, who is still like developing, and you put him in like a college setting, you know, among like ordinary people aren't going to notice him. You take Rav Pesach and you put him in a college setting, people are going to automatically know that this is someone who's like different and not like, you know, behaving, you know, why? Because he's internalized it, you know, not necessarily because of what he says or doesn't say. Yeah.
So I think maybe part of the reason why he's not going to be influenced in the same sort of way.
Yeah.
I think if he's there long term, like if he's there, let's say for like 20 years,
yeah,
it is going to affect him.
Yeah.
But because he's kind of holding himself separate,
Yeah.
in a way where he's not talking about what he's actually like the you know the chacham that he's actually like thinking about.
Yeah.
And he's not getting involved in the actions. He's going to be able to mentally hold himself separate from them.
Right. Exactly. I think it has to do with identification.
Yeah.
That he's going, you know, and I know I've read this before, but it's such a good area. I have to read it again.
Yeah.
In Tehillim 1.
I would also say I think an issue that the Chochmah is going to fall into if he shares his Chochmah is the Ksil are gonna probably mock it, you know, because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And then because he doesn't have such a strong identification with it, it's gonna damage his relationship with it.
Right. That's gonna put him into tension.
Yeah.
In that sense. Yeah. Okay, I'm not going to quote it, but I will. I'll paraphrase it. That in the first pasuk of Tehillim, he said, "Ashrei ha'isha asher lo halach ba'atzas rishayim u'v'derech hatayim lo amad u'v'moshav leitzim lo yashav." Happy / praiseworthy is the man who does not follow the counsel of the wicked, doesn't stand on the path of chatayim, of sinners, and doesn't sit in the session of scorners. So the Meiri, among his many possibilities, says that Rishayim does not mean Rishayim here. It means people who are like just into like physical pleasure, or money, maybe money. I think so. He says Russia is the least bad, Chatayim is worse, and Leitzim is even worse. And he says, so then he asks the question: if you're not following the counsel of the Rishayim, what's the havmina that you're going to get into the path of the sinners? And if you're not doing that, what's the havmina you're going to get into the Moshav Leitzim? So the way we explained it was based on what he said. I just don't remember his wording. Is that you start off by saying, well, I am not a Russia, but I'm just going to hang around them, you know, and then you start to identify with them and you say, well, yeah, but I'm not a Choteh. But then once you're identifying with a Russia, that moves you one step closer to the Chatayim, and then you start identifying with them. You say, well, but I would never sit with the late, you know. So it's the identification that that causes you to fall into the next trap. So what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying here, I think what Isaac's saying, is that if the differentiation is clean enough that like there is like an oil and water phenomenon, that can actually protect you in that you're not going to partake in their discussions and stuff like that. But I think you're right that over time, then it could erode. Yeah.
So what makes someone think that they won't get it might be an easy answer, but like what makes someone think that they won't get corrupted by them.
Right. I think there are many things, but I think part of it is a feeling that midos are acquisitions, that once you acquire them, then you have them. I think overestimation of your own agency and an underestimation of Tehillim of Hilchos Deos above Aleph, about how much you're influenced by people, like in general. I think the underestimation of how much you need public approval, and the approval of your peers. I think the overestimation or underestimation of how much circumstances affect you, or I think that there are a lot of things. I mean, it's a good question to talk about.
The extreme example of this would be like Acher, like you can't learn under a guy.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's actually a good example where Rabbi Meir could learn under him, because Rabbi Meir is not going to be affected by him. But that's like an exception, right? Okay. Third interpretation. O Yeh Seder HaMalitza. Or perhaps the allegory here is ki pa'amim shetenuach ha'chachma b'lev Navon. Sometimes chachma rests in the heart of a Navon. Kagon she'hanavon hahu bein Ksilim. For example, when the Navon is among the Ksilim, ki az lo yashlich ha'pninim lifneihem, because then he does not throw these pearls in front of them. V'hine az ena nodas b'dibor, and then it is not known in speech. Ach tanuach b'lev hanavon v'hi nodat b'hanagaso. But it'll rest in the heart of the Navon and will only be made known through his actions. That in the heart of the Navon, Chochmah rests when he is among the Ksilim. And among the Ksilim, it will be made known through his actions. So it's like a bit of a combo here, right? That so that's interesting also. That's like there are certain people who you cannot influence through Dibor. And if you try, it'll backfire. So in cases like that, the Navon knows it's better to be silent and just let your actions affect them. An example of this, and this has been my policy since year one of teaching, because this was Rabbi Moskowitz's policy. I don't quite get it. I mean, I know maybe there's populations where this is the case, but like there are high school, Rebbeim who will try to tell kids what their behavior should be in terms of mitzvos and halacha, and again, with a certain crowd that works, but with the other crowd that just backfires, better to be someone, again, when I was in high school, then, Rabbi Fox, Rabbi Moskowitz, what they did is they lived halacha, and you just see that as a role model, and you pick up on things through osmosis, and you also want to emulate it because it's not being forced on you, So I think that's how the Navon can influence. It's interesting that he's saying that it's going to influence Ksil, because that's not a target of Mishlei usually. But this is, we've said in the past, there's Rabbeinu Yonah early in Mishlei where he says the only way you can influence a Ksil through is if they get the consequences of their actions, and then they pick up on how to, on the fact that they made a mistake. That's one inroad. You can't be mochiach them, because then they're going to shut off. This is another inroad that they can pick up on people from their actions in this indirect way. Yeah,
they're certainly not immune to being influenced by the people that they're around.
Right.
So,
yeah, right. That you mean the very quality that makes them a Ksil of just being influenced by the people around them could also if you put a good influence there, then that could help them. Let me just see if this is the end of the Rabbeinu Yonah. Yes. What was that?
It's a pure pressure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we don't have time to do the Meiri, but let's just summarize what we have here. So we have, at the end of the day, Isaac's approach, which is about internalization of Chochmah and how that is going to affect their actions in a different way than just knowing about something. And then the Chacham is in between. Then we have my idea, which is you can't opt out, you either relate to Chochmah as a Gavra or be acted upon it as a Chefza. And using that as a litmus test to see where you're at vis-a-vis any area of Chochmah. Then you have the Ezra and Metzudas David, the Metzudas David and Rabbeinu Yonah's first interpretation, which is that your relationship to Chochmah, if it is truly stemming from your value of it, it's going to result in a certain tranquility of not, I said it's still not a good word, of not voicing it to everyone. But if your relationship to it is based on covet, you're going to tell it to everyone. and then the Chacham is somewhere in between. We'll leave it at that right now. His second interpretation in Rabbeinu Yonah is that just as fragrant aromas are more pungent, or are more noticeable in contrast to bad stuff, then the Navon who is operating based on Chochmah will automatically be differentiated from the Ksilin that he's walking among, and that will act as a sort of buffer zone, preventing him from being drawn after them through identification. He's not identifying with them. And then the last one is that the way to influence Ksilim, if you're a Navon and you're among them, is through action, but keeping silent. It has to be, the Chochmah has to be at rest. Okay, really good pasuk. Yeah, all right, I liked it. All right, nice. Okay, good. So we have what, 2 more psukim left in the parak, I think?
That's like another one.